Good morning, Iris.
Hi, good morning, Sarah.
Hi, my name's Sarah. I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how minority communities were impacted by COVID-19 in Mecklenburg County. Today is December 16th, 2022. This week there were 196 reported cases of COVID-19 in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area, which was a slight increase of 11%. Therefore, today you are wearing a mask, and I'm comfortable not wearing a mask. Would you introduce yourself, Iris?
Yes, my name is Iris Navarro, and I live in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. I have brown, medium-length hair, brown eyes. I am Hispanic, and I do speak English and Spanish.
Oh, I love that. How long have you been in Charlotte, Iris?
Since 2003, so
Okay.
20-something years. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And you're a mother.
I am a mother.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4 children,
Wow. And what are their ages?
12, 8, 5, and almost 1.5-year-old.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How was it for you the last 2 years being a mother of 4? And I think if I do my math correctly, you were pregnant during COVID.
I was pregnant.
How was that?
It was a bit scary. Or a lot scary, very scary. I did not send my children to school. I homeschooled for about 8 months. The past school year, I was too scared to send them, and then having a newborn in the house, I did not want the newborn to catch anything, get sick. But when I had the opportunity of vaccinating my children, I did, and then I finally sent them to school in January of this year. I thought they would get behind because we homeschooled, but when they started back going to school, they fell right in. They did good. They did well.
That's awesome. How was it homeschooling 3 kids and being pregnant?
It was difficult. The good thing is we can manage our own time, but they would get sidetracked a lot, and they did miss their friends and the social part and just being with each other. They got to a point where they just couldn't live with each other anymore almost. And I was stressed out, but, I took one day at a time, and I just wanted to protect my children, protect the baby, protect ourselves from catching COVID and.
Yeah. What are some habits or ways that you created to protect yourself and your kids and your family?
So our social life was very limited. We did a lot of video calls. I did not take them out in public when the pandemic first started. I would go to the grocery store by myself, or I would order stuff online through Amazon, and it was taken to my house, or I would ask my neighbor to watch them, and she would go to the grocery store and she'd buy stuff for me, or I would do the same for her. We had some stressful times just thinking that COVID was out. I didn't want to breathe the air that other people were breathing. Yeah. It was scary.
I can imagine. When you had your 4th child, were there a lot of restrictions when you gave birth? Like, was your husband allowed to be there, or was everything uplifted by that time?
No, when I gave birth, it was only one person allowed, so only my husband was there. Okay. My children were not able to visit, so they were very anxious to meet their baby brother. And even when we got home, my kids had been isolated, so I wasn't scared that they would get him sick or anything.
Yeah. And before we started the interview, we did this little activity called the hand map together. Is there anything from your hand map that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, there's one over here that I was telling Sarah, with this COVID, the pandemic, because it was a pandemic, I learned that, survival was very important to us, because there were so many people dying, people that we knew. My mom has a business. There were a lot of customers that passed away that, they had existing conditions, caught COVID and made it worse. And we were able to survive this pandemic, and I think that we can survive anything else that comes. Yeah. It was very hard, and we overcame this this situation. I know it hasn't ended completely,
Yeah.
but right now we also have the flu, we have RSV, and
Yeah.
it's all one big issue.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of company does or small business does your mom have?
My mom has she has a grocery store.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And do you work at the grocery store?
I currently do not.
Okay.
With my children, it's very hard to be there, but
Yes.
I did help her open it up and set it up, and
amazing.
I go randomly,
Yeah,
but it's harder with children because they want to run around, they want to be kids.
for sure, for sure. How, if there was something that you can think of, how was your mom and her business impacted by COVID?
It
The last 2 years?
was greatly impacted because, a lot of people did not have work. They didn't have money. The world pretty much stopped. A lot of people weren't working, so they didn't have money to spend, or it's a Hispanic grocery store, so a lot of people send money to their countries, and all that went down.
Man, and was it hard for her to keep her doors open, or did she have to, was it hard for her to keep staff?
Well, her main worker did get sick. She was in her house for a little over 2 weeks with COVID.
Wow.
So my mom was there the full time, working full hours,
Man.
trying to get the merchandise in place and taking care of the customers and
Yeah.
replenishing her store. So it was a lot of stress for my mom. And then also my mom has asthma and very delicate when it comes to her lungs. And so she was scared of being exposed to COVID.
Yeah. Are there precautions that she put in place to kind of help protect her employees and customers?
Yes, she has high display cases, so she put plastic on there to keep, that space between the customer and herself, and a lot of Lysol, a lot of Clorox wipes, wiping down every day after every customer. It was stressful.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know who was going to walk in the door, who had what, or, if they had something and then the next person behind them had, didn't have anything and would get sick. And it was just scary for everyone.
Yeah. And then your husband, was he impacted in terms of employment during COVID? Did he have to work at home, or did he go in person?
He has a small business to a construction business.
Okay.
And when COVID hit, he couldn't go into customers' houses, so he had to stop his work. And, if he stops that, there's no income coming in. And it was about 3 months of him staying at home, waiting for everything to subside. And then I said, you need to start working. We need money. We have a lot of bills we need to pay, and I don't want to get backed up.
Yeah.
And so he went, but, always with his mask. And it's hard to work in construction, sweating and wearing the mask. And it was hard, but, we needed it. We needed the income.
Yeah. And when he started working back again in construction, were still restrictions in place, like around you guys for COVID, or no?
Well, since he works with inside homes,
Oh, okay.
people, they live there.
Yeah.
So he always had to wear his mask, and customers would wear their mask, and sometimes they avoided in person, or they talk from a great distance just in case they had anything, either the customer or we did. And he had a customer, a private school he works in, and so they required him to be vaccinated. So that was another thing that.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
They required it, they wanted it, they encouraged it, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. It's for your safety anyways, and the customer safety.
Yeah. You talked about survival, and that was a really big theme for you. What are some ways that you felt like you had to create spaces for survival?
Reword that for me.
Like, essentially, what did survival look like for you? Did you have to do something specific? Did you create a new habit? Anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was keep your kids at home. Everybody wear your mask, change your mask, almost strip down before you walked in your house so that you wouldn't spread the virus in case you had it on you. And then, you know, not waste any money.
Yeah.
Get the essentials and buy as much as you can of toilet paper, all that stuff, which seemed crazy, but you know, the stores, when you really needed it, the stores didn't have it. And just, you know, just not having fun, not going to parties, and just stay home so that you can not catch this deadly virus because you didn't know if it was going to kill you or one of your loved ones.
Yeah. And for you, you know, as a mother, I feel like there's just so much responsibility on you that you feel. Were there ways, and having to be at home so often with the kids, were there ways that you kind of created like self-care for yourself?
I don't know. Self-care was not even a priority. And at that moment, I mean, if I was able to shower, then I got lucky, or I'd have to wait for everybody to be home asleep so that I can take a shower. It was just, I mean, wow. If there was a mess in the house, I'll look right over it or just kick it around because we were home all the time.
Yeah.
And 4 kids, the baby was smaller, but even the 3 other ones make a mess, and they're kids.
Constantly, right?
Yes.
And so now that the kids are back in school, and like you said, we are still being impacted by COVID, just not at the degree we were before. And a lot of restrictions were lifted. How are your kids doing back in school, and how are you doing, and how has that been?
So my kids were, I mean, desperate to go back to school. They wanted that social life. They're so used to it. They're all social birds. But, you know, we keep getting sick, which is not easy. So I've been having them wear their mask. Just put your mask on. You know, you're coughing. I don't want other people to get sick. Or if somebody else is coughing, just try to stay away. Wear your hand sanitizer. Use your hand sanitizer. And then for myself, you know, with the baby can't wear a mask. You know, if he's sick, you know, I try not to take him out or see any friends or get him close to other children so that other children don't get sick. And I feel a little bit better now. I'm not as afraid as I was last year, the year before that, of catching COVID. But, you know, it's still that thought. I go out to a grocery store and I hear someone coughing. I'm like, oh, or sneezing, and I try to stay away from them. And I mean, I think wearing a mask might just be a part of us. Before I used to see someone wear a mask and it was a little strange. Now it's like a normal thing to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, good, you're wearing a mask.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting, for sure. You mentioned to me before that you're very social. How was that? Because I feel like with isolation and like you said, you made a lot of priority to keep you and your family and your kids safe, and that meant staying home often. How did that impact your social life?
I think a lot of friends, they would invite us to parties and we would say, no, thank you, or no, we're going to stay home. And, you know, a lot of friends were like, oh, these people, you know, they're trying not to catch COVID. I bet you they are, you know, a little negative from some people, but, you know, everybody has to do what they have to do to stay alive and try to stay healthy, because you don't know how COVID is going to affect each person. And it was hard. It was sad. I don't want to say depression, but a little bit of it, because we were so used to, you know, gatherings and maybe parties here and there, and just staying home all the time, and the same routine of being in the house did get a little boring. So we try to go out, and we have chickens and goats, and that was a little getaway for us, just going out to the yard and play with the kids.
That's so nice. You got chickens and goats.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, just to respect your time, I know you got to rush, but is there anything, a story or an experience that you would like to share with us before we finish?
In relations to COVID?
Your life.
My life?
Your life.
No, I mean,
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
I don't. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Iris. I really appreciate hearing a part of your story, and thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.